I call this story a tasty breakthrough, and here's why. In 2010, I was working for a global ceiling tile manufacturer, and we had way more capacity in our North American manufacturing network than customer demand required. So it was determined it would be in our best interest to shutter one of our plants. Now, the plant that was chosen was over 100 years old, had the lowest capacity of any of our plants, and a much higher cost structure. Now, for the most part, most of the products in the plant could be produced at any of our other manufacturing facilities, except for one very unique product. Now, this product had a really strong visual and high durability and sold in the millions of square feet a year to one specific customer. It was critical then that we figure out a way that one of our manufacturing facilities might be able to produce that product following the shuttering of this plant. Now, traditional methods would state that our capital engineering teams would go and identify the equipment required, purchase that equipment, install it, and then add it to the footprint of one of our existing plants. Our goal, however, was to not do that, as that would be extremely expensive and take many months to do. So we decided to try a different approach. So the approach we tried was 3P, or production preparation process. Now, this is an 11-step lean methodology used to drive teams to come up with extremely creative breakthroughs. These steps, called the NACAO method, do many things to push people beyond, so far outside of the box in their thinking that they can't even see it. Let me give you an example of a couple of the steps. One of the steps, the team is encouraged to go to nature, identify the way nature would solve the problem that they're trying to solve. The idea being that nature has had many, many years, whether you believe thousands, millions, or billions of years, to determine the most simple, efficient, and effective ways to do things through all those years of development. So that gets teams thinking in ways they normally wouldn't think. And my team was built of many engineers, scientists, and technicians. So these are people that don't normally think about nature in regards to making ceiling tiles. Another step is called moonshining. So once you've decided things you want to try, you're encouraged to use things that you already have, pieces and parts and raw materials and supplies and equipment to accomplish the work. Now, moonshining gets its name from, during the Great Depression when there was prohibition, and if you wanted any alcoholic beverages, you had to find somebody that could make it for you. So by the light of the moon, out of the sight of the revenuers, out in the woods somewhere, they had their stills and they were able to make moonshine. So very similar, they were creative and they could solve the problem. Now, what was interesting was I had a lot of traditional team members, including a 35-year engineer, but he was particularly inspired by this production preparation process method. And in the middle of the second day, we were about to get into moonshining. He said, well, Adam, before I go to moonshining, I'd like to take a trip to the grocery store. There are some things I'd like to pick up. So I said, well, that's fine. If that's going to help you moonshine, that's fantastic. That's readily available. Go out and go get what you want. We have an unlimited budget for this. And of course, the rest of the team was very curious to see what he was going to come back with. So after about an hour and a half, he returned to the team and took a big grocery bag down to the testing facility, which was located in the basement of the building we were working in. We followed him down, and he pulled out a number of items, including a bag of road salt, a bag of kitty litter, 3 different boxes of cereals, and some other granular materials. So we were quite curious. Now, what are we going to do with kitty litter? What are we going to do with road salt? Well, he knew what he was going to do. He saw opportunities to create some textures. So he took blank ceiling tiles, and the first thing he used was the kitty litter. And he sprinkled the kitty litter into some adhesive and then spread it over the ceiling tile. Once it was dry, he sprayed it with paint to see if that gave the visual that he was looking for. Well, kitty litter didn't work, so he did the same thing with salt, and he ground it to different sizes, and he did the same thing. Still didn't do what he wanted. Next, there was a box of Fruity Pebbles, and he ground that down. That didn't work. Then he had Cheerios. That didn't work. Then he pulled out a bag of cornflakes. Now, we were clearly not going to make ceiling tiles with cornflakes, but he ground the cornflakes down, mixed it with the adhesive, laid it onto the ceiling tile face, painted it, and all of a sudden, we had something that looked almost exactly like the product we were producing at the plant that was going to be shuttered. Well, this was exciting. Now, we know we can't produce ceiling tiles with cornflakes, but we now knew that there was a texture and a method to get that ceiling tile to look right. So for the next 2 days, the team used this moonshining approach to determine an actual practical method to get that same texture and visual and even increase the durability of the product. So by the end of the 3P, we had something. Now what we knew was we had to figure out, now how can we produce this in one of our existing plants? So we kicked off a project team, and for the next year, they basically developed the ability to produce this critical product in one of our existing plants. The result was the customer never saw a difference in product. They received what they needed, and from the company standpoint, the cost had been cut in half, and we actually were able to generate even better properties in that ceiling tile using existing processes at one of our plants that wasn't shuttered. All of this inspired by cornflakes, which was our tasty breakthrough. I hope this story provided you with some inspiration to revisit your own processes. I have a lot more I'd like to share. Head over to pi-partners.com to learn how I can help. And check back from time to time for more Kaizen stories.